Hello, welcome once again into the Ying School for another video. So today I want to talk about fighting. So there's a lot of fighting in the media now. Boxing world has really taken a big surge in the last couple of years. Obviously the rise of UFC and MMA. So there's more and more of you who are getting the idea that you want to learn to fight. Okay, well, obviously, there are essential things first that we need to learn before we can even think about it. So I want to touch on a few of those things and then actually tell you what the most important thing is about learning to fight. And it doesn't matter whether you want to do point fighting or wrestling or boxing or kickboxing or sanda or full free fight. Dalo doi is what we used to call it in the old day. When I fought free fight in Hong Kong, that was in the mid-80s. There was Dalo doi, there's Cantonese free fight. That was before the UFC even existed. Nowadays, of course, everybody knows that as MMA, mixed martial arts. So, let me first of all dispel one huge myth. Hitting pads, boom, boom, hitting the pads. That's a great way to work out the cadence of your punches, your timing, your rhythm, your power, but it's not going to teach you to fight. Okay? So if you're going to a boxing gym, you know, one of these fit boxing schools or something, and you're just hitting pads, that's not learning to fight. So don't let yourself think that you're learning to fight, okay? You're hitting pads. Like Bruce Lee said, boards don't hit back. Pads don't hit back. Fighting is very much, and this is constant, fighting is two-way traffic. Two-way traffic, always two-way traffic. So when you train, once you have some basics down, then you need to try to make sure you find someone who can train you in that way, two-way traffic, not one-way traffic. So some of you might know, I grew up in Asia. So when I was a little kid, like 7 or 8, you know, I was looking at the Kung Fu, and then as I got older, I started looking at the Sanda. Sanda is Chinese kickboxing. So that's with, if you don't know what Sanda is, that's the national fighting sport of China. It's part of Wushu Kung Fu. And in Sanda you can punch, you can kick, you can throw. So it's like a kind of a cross between kickboxing and judo. And there are specific throws that work really nice against kicks and stuff like that. A lot of Sanda fighters now from China, a lot of the top fighters are moving over into MMA, mainly because there's a current Chinese champion of the UFC, Zhang Weili. She used to be a Sanda fighter. Obviously Sanda has a really good background for something like MMA because it's multidiscipline. Now when I was a kid, we didn't get to start training Sanda till we were 12. So the little kids, we were just doing Kung Fu and doing forms and stuff, and all the animals and things like that. And then when we were 12, we were allowed to start training Sanda. So the way I trained, the way I learned to train to fight is how I teach and how I coach my guys nowadays. I've always just done it the same way. Why fix it if it isn't broken, you know? So the first 6 months I remember was just routines, getting down, obviously punching, but the main focus at that time was on footwork and movement, okay? You hear the terms all the time. If you follow boxing or you follow the UFC, you'll always hear them talking about footwork and head movement. Now the reason they always talk about these things is because it's really important, okay? If you walk in like an automaton and your head doesn't move, then it's like that ball at the back there, see, on a stick, just a ball on a stick moving in. You can just hit it whenever you want. So apart from doing your pad work, okay, because you're going to hit pads, you're going to hit the bag. You know, different bags as well. Different bags have different purposes. A lot of people don't realize a heavy bag, you know, you want that bag on you. You want to be wrestling with that thing as you try to hit it, because it represents that moment when you're in a clinch with your opponent and you're trying to move around and still hit and control the clinch. So that heavy bag, you know, if you've got a heavy bag in your gym or at home, wherever you train, you know, get into that thing so you've got the weight of it on top of you. So you're working close, power shots to the body. But again, that's only one aspect. We're still talking about hitting something, which is only one aspect. So you need to find a good coach who can teach you proper footwork, lateral footwork, moving in the space, the ring, or, you know, on the MMA, you're going to be working towards fighting in a cage. You know, in the Sundar, we fight on a lei tai, which is kind of like this yellow area here behind me. That's like a fighting area, but then it's on a raised platform. So, so it's like a ring without ropes, basically, and you can be thrown off the platform, which is great to do to somebody else, but not so great if it happens to you. Luckily, I've only been thrown off once. But so you need good footwork. Once you get your footwork starting to work, so you can't be flat-footed, right? You need to be able to move. So think like if you're going to sprint, then that back heel is going to come up. You're going to push off with your legs. So you need to have the legs working all the time. When you move, the legs always need to be working. So footwork is going to start putting that into the right place. Once your footwork starts coming together, you start to find some rhythm. I always say to my fighters, your footwork will sometimes get you into trouble if you're not careful, but it will also get you out of trouble. So that's a really important one. So you need routines where you're moving. You're always changing direction when you fight, constantly. From the second that you touch gloves with somebody, you're changing direction. You're moving left, moving right, forwards, backwards, up, down. So it's a real three-dimensional thing going on, which is another point I want to make to you. A lot of people comment sometimes on stuff on my Instagram, like if I put on a combo or something, then they want me to give them all the details over the internet of how they can train that. You know, you can't learn, you can get ideas from stuff like that. You know, you can look at somebody, one of your favorite fighters online, see the way they're moving, try and get some of that down in your own training. But it's only a two-dimensional picture that you're looking at. You're looking at a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional thing. So seeing it on the screen and actually doing it with another human being and being in the right spot, or, you know, too wide, too close, too far out, you know, the wrong distance, you can't learn that from somebody's Instagram, okay? So for sure, get ideas. Pad guys also get ideas, you know. But then you need to work them in 3 dimensions, you know, and that takes time to get it down really, really good, so your fighters can really benefit from it, or if you're a fighter, so that you can actually pull that off when you're sparring, you know, when you're working with another person. So footwork's really important. Head movement, particularly head movement, waist, you know, you can be standing out on someone and drop that left hip just as a fake. You know, if I'm here, I fake that hip, you think the right hand's coming, but actually the left hand's coming. You know, a fighter that does that a lot is Conor McGregor. You know, he'll drop that back hip constantly, or he'll show you something that he's not even going to throw. He's just showing it to you to fake you. So the way the body moves will have impact on how the opponent reacts. There are also theories about the hips and the position of hips and stuff like that, but that's much more detail at a higher level. So with your head movement and your footwork, the other thing that's really important is spatial awareness. Spatial awareness. So see right now here, I'm really close to the camera, right? So I'm in this little small circle. Now if I take a step back, that circle extends a little bit. So now I'm in a different space, which means you're also in a different space. So if you're hitting me, I might be able to avoid that, but whereas here I wouldn't be able to avoid it. So I need to be aware of that distance. You know, when I go to long range, then I'm gonna have to really reach to get at you. So then I want some extension in the joint. You know, so we have special training to make sure that you can get full length, full extension out of your, particularly the shoulder joints around here by the, you know, the back and the lats, so you can really get a nice long strike out. So essentially we've got like 3 ranges: long, middle, and close, long, middle, and short. And you need to be aware of which space you're in at every given moment in relation to your opponent. One thing that happens a lot, which I see when my fight team are sparring, so you know, someone might be in really close in the pocket working, and then they'll come out and they'll throw a really long, you see now how that, you don't even see my fist because it's gone way past the camera, because I've thrown a long range punch when I should be tightening up real close and popping that hook in over the shoulder. So I'm in that short space, that short range, that short orbit. So that's what I should be using until my feet move. Then when my feet move, that range changes again. So spatial awareness, really important. At all times when you're fighting, you need to be aware of what your possible trajectories for both attack and defense are. Someone you see a lot, big, you know, huge guy, 6'9", Tyson Fury, but you'll see him just slip out of the way of those big hooks because he's very, very aware. Once he's measured the opponent and he knows his range and he knows the opponent's range, then he knows exactly how to get himself in on the right spot on his back foot so that he can just avoid the move, slip out of the way of all the punches that are coming. And that's got nothing to do with him hitting pads or punching his opponent. It's footwork and spatial awareness and head movement. Don't forget, fighting is about hitting and not getting hit. So, one other thing that's really important right in the beginning to try and investigate a little bit in your training is distance control. Distance control, you do that basically with your jab, okay? So you can stick that jab out as a measure just to see where the opponent is, see what the range is. You can feel the opponent, you can feel his front arm. You can fake the opponent to see when he moves how long his jab is. So this is a really good measure. The jab is a really good measure. And there's an old boxing saying, they say a right hand will take you down the street. A left hand, a jab, will take you all around the world. So we do routines also working off the jab, just only jab, jab cross, jab hook, jab uppercut, jab double hook, you know, all kinds of different combinations. Working off the jab, double jab, triple jab. But then in combination with the right footwork and the right movement. Once you have that idea of distance control, then you can start to dictate how and where the fight takes place. And that's the most important thing of all. When it comes down to actually fighting, now let's be clear here, we're not talking about going outside and finding some kid to fight with on the street. We're talking about a proper fight, you know, with a referee or in a controlled situation with the right equipment and a rule set. So when it gets down to that point that you're actually going to fight, one of the most important things in the world is called ring generalship. You saw a perfect example of this in the Ruiz-Joshua 2 fight. Anthony Joshua was the general. He controlled everything that happened over all 12 rounds, where the fight went, where it didn't go, where the attacks came, where the defenses came, just like a general sitting up on a hill controlling his troops. So ring generalship, basically what that means is you're the boss. It's your ring, you decide, or your mat, or your cage, you decide, or your lei tai, and it's up to you where it happens. In the middle, on the edge, against a cage, up against the ropes. There are classic examples in history where people have used the ropes to their advantage. Muhammad Ali, there's a famous thing called the rope-a-dope. If you don't know what that is, go look it up. Muhammad Ali, possibly the most notable heavyweight boxer of all time. Ring generalship. So we got a lot of things there. Apart from hitting the pads, we have to get our footwork right. Left side forwards, right side forwards, moving in, moving out, moving sideways, getting out of a corner. All of those things are to do with your feet. And in combination with your feet, waist and head movement. There are routines that you can, if you've got a good boxing coach or a good fight coach, you know, ask him for some head movement routines. So he'd throw a bunch of punches and you're going to miss every single one just by dipping or slipping or rolling or pulling. And once you can combine that, let's say on a 5-punch combination, then you start to understand how you need to move when you fight. If you imagine riding a bicycle, it's not just your feet that are moving, right? Your whole body's moving. Everything's in it. Same as when you swim. Your whole body's swimming. When you fight, it's the same thing. It's not only your fists that are in there. All of you's in there. And then we talk, sometimes you hear people talk about fight IQ. Fight IQ. That's when logical things start to come into your fighting, so you automatically do stuff, you automatically move to the right spot because you know, or you think you know, you take a guess, and if you've got experience, most of the time your guess will be good, of whereabouts your opponent's going to go or how he's going to move. So a good example of fight IQ would be, again, someone like Conor McGregor or Vasily Lomachenko. Those guys have amazing fight IQ, which means their intelligence level in the fight is dictating what's happening and how they set their opponent up and how long they're going to wait before they do something. It's like a little computer going on all the time. And then as soon as they touch gloves, someone like that with a lot of experience, they'll start downloading information from their opponent. And that will then dictate and be absorbed into the program. And then later in the fight, boom, that's going to come, bash, knockout, or whatever it might be. Fight IQ basically only comes from experience. It's something that grows with experience. And it's not something you can really train. It's something that will either grow because your brain is like that, or it won't. I've got guys in different gyms who've been around a long time fighting. Great fighters, always work hard, never give up, last one out of the gym. But they don't have that thing, that little spark of creativity. Another UFC fighter who's coming up now, really strong, Tony Ferguson, has amazing fight IQ. Amazing. The stuff that guy will do out of the pocket and, just out of nowhere is so creative because his mind works like that. Obviously, you need a body that can back it up as well, which is really important. So, yeah, obviously things like conditioning, condition, speed, you know, those kind of things, flexibility, that's automatic. You don't even think about that. So all of those things need your attention, okay? But the key, and this is the whole crux, the key to fighting, I'm afraid, is to fight. If you don't spar, if you don't regularly get in there with another human being and move through 3 dimensions and put all of this stuff together, then you won't be able to fight. If you want to learn to wrestle, you need to wrestle. Once you've got your basics down, okay? I'm not saying go in and spar the first day. You need a little bit of background structure, a little bit of movement. You need to know how to block, how to avoid stuff. Once you start getting the hang of that, spar and spar and spar and spar. The more you spar, the better you'll be at fighting. It's that simple. Okay? See you on the next one.